Hey everybody, I hope you are doing well. I apologize for us running a little bit late. Had a few technical difficulties that we needed to kind of take care of, but I'm excited about the program bringing forward to you tonight. This has been an amazing journey that I've been on since I decided to start to do this podcast. I am just amazed it's been 20 episodes. When I first started it, I wasn't sure how far I would get if I get anybody to be able to talk to me. I've had some really amazing guides. We've had some marathoners, some triathletes, senior game participants, pickleball players, rugby players, climbers, ultra athletes, both in running and cycling. We've had coaches. I've had physical therapists, screenwriters, publishers, and authors. So amazing. So one of the things as we kind of move forward tonight, there's ways you can get involved. First of all, hopefully subscribe to the podcast. That way you can hear what all these amazing things that these people are doing out there. Give me a rating on iTunes and leave me a comment. That always helps us to get found. Share with your friends. Be a guide. I am looking for more people. Like I said, we've gone 20 episodes so far. I am taking this 1 week at a time. We'll see where it goes. I don't know, but I'm hoping we're going to go for a long, long time. Join our patron program. Patron program is something that you, through Podbean, who is my host, starts as low as $1 a month. We have different levels. Just helps me to kind of defray some of my costs. I'm going to do this no matter what. I've enjoyed every minute of it, and I've learned so much from all these people. So I'm going to continue to do it as long as they're willing to talk to me. But anything does help. And then also support those in our affiliate program. I've started to have some affiliates come in. Hopefully we'll do some more of that. So please support them as well. So as I was getting ready to kind of talk about goal setting and performance in life and athletics, I was trying to figure out how can I start this off. And my wife actually gave me the best analogy at all. This painting I have hanging behind me, which is with the epoxy, you can't really see it real well. So this is what it looks like. She did this yesterday. So it provided a great analogy for me as far as kind of setting goals. And I know there's some of you out there saying, I'm never going to be a painter. I'm not an artist. I'm not creative. To be honest, my wife doesn't feel she is as well. I beg to differ, but I can promise you that none of the canvases that she starts with are like this. She basically repurposes everything, and kind of like with the Weathered Athlete podcast, you know, we all are weathering one day at a time, but it's that weathering that kind of gives us that character. So she is great at finding old pieces, taking canvases that have been used before that maybe aren't so perfect, and then turning them into this masterpiece. So we can all, doesn't matter where we start, and hopefully you'll hear by the end of tonight those steps that these two amazing women have taken to get to do the things that they've been doing. So what are we going to be able to do here? Hopefully by the end of tonight, we're going to design a plan for success. We're going to help you determine what is possible. We're going to look at realistic versus unrealistic goals. If you have paid attention and listened to any of these episodes, there's no such thing as unrealistic goals. These people are taking it to a different level. They are incredible as far as the things they are doing. So we're going to look at how can we reverse engineer. Basically take that long-term goal and take the steps to get us to do down to short-term goals to really make things successful. And then also learn the habits to increase success. So what I'm going to do, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring in these two wonderful women. The first one I'm going to bring in Dierdre. She is the author of The Sharp End of Life. She's an educator. She speaks multiple language. Yep, excellent book. I highly recommend it. Read it cover to cover. She is a symphony director, or was a symphony director. I don't think you still do that now, Dierdre.
No.
Marathon runner, and she's the oldest woman at 66 to summit El Capitan. And she is the mother of two extreme athletes, Alex Honnold, which most people should know from Free Solo or all the amazing things he is doing. But then also Stacia Honnold is doing some pretty incredible things too. She has Car Free Rambles as a blog. She doesn't own a car, or at least she didn't own a car the last I checked. So she bikes everywhere. So she's an ultra cyclist and an ultra runner. So Dierdre, welcome.
Thank you.
And then the second person is Beth Warren. Beth is an engineer. She is a patent holder. She is a 15 times Boston Marathon qualifier. She's run the event 6 times. She's done 28 marathons and 150K, which I was actually there for that 50K, which was fantastic. And then she's a 3-time full Ironman finisher, 11-time half Ironman finisher, and she's a fellow Triad Tri-Team member, training partner, and a friend. So welcome, Beth.
Thank you, Pete. Great to be here.
Okay, so here's the way this is going to work here is for anybody that wants to participate, this is being live streamed to both Facebook group and to YouTube. So what happened, if you have any questions, please write your comments or questions inside your comment section, and then we can pull them into, excuse me, we can pull them in and kind of discuss them so you can be a part of this program. So what we're going to do to start off this is I want to start off with, is there such a thing as an unrealistic goal? And maybe we'll start with you, Dierdre.
Unrealistic. I'm not sure what you mean by unrealistic. I don't think there is such a thing. If you choose to do something to make something your goal, then of course logically it becomes realistic for you. It's up to you to decide. I don't think there really is such. Only you can decide that. And once you commit to a goal, then it's totally realistic for you.
Mm-hmm. Beth, do you have anything to add?
Just to say that usually if somebody is thinking about doing something that they feel is an unrealistic goal, it's usually because they've heard somebody say or tell them or say because of this thing you have or that thing you have, it's unrealistic. And I don't buy into that. There's a lot of things that maybe realistically I should have never been able to do, and I've done it.
Right.
Yeah, Dierdre, you have an interesting thing on dreams. What's your thoughts on that? I want to hear that quote.
Well, I firmly have always believed that if you can dream something, you can do it. All you have to do is backwards engineer it, break it down into the baby steps, the things you need to know to be able to master on your way to that goal. If you can dream something, you can do it. You just have to break it down into steps.
So let's talk about that. So when you say that goal, and for you, Deirdre, I'm gonna talk about the symphony. So did you feel that was something that you actually could accomplish or could do or had the potential to do?
When I was 5, I started dreaming about this. All my life, I wanted to be able to conduct, okay? Because I've been a performing musician all my life, but conducting is a different animal altogether. And I am in no way trained to do that. I have nothing on paper that says I can do that. But I watched the musicians all my life. I watched the conductors. I grew up in New York City. Would go to Central Park and I'd watch, Bernstein and all the biggies conduct. I studied it. I didn't study it in school, but I sure did study it in life.
Yeah.
And I knew that I could do it. Like you were saying, Beth, if you think you can do it, don't listen to all the naysayers. There were plenty of naysayers. I'm not qualified to do that. But I moved to a place where it was possible. They had nothing. We moved to West Sacramento after we lived in Japan. And West Sacramento back then, that's 35 years ago, they had no culture, nothing, one store, and that's all they had. So that was my opportunity. I had the opportunity, I had the interest, I had all the study I had done all my life. So yeah, it was a crazy idea. I shouldn't have been able to do that, and yet, if all the things line up, there you go.
Yeah.
commit to your goal.
How about you, Beth? As far as,
I
is Kona a goal of yours?
Yeah, I'd say that's one of those like 10 years down the road kind of goal. And sometimes I think that a lot of the fun of it is the total journey and how long, and even thinking about the fact that I mean, yes, if I qualified for Kona this year when I did Arizona, I'm going to go, but I'm not really expecting that to happen for a while because I think, 3 Ironmans is just enough for you to know what you're doing, what to expect. But I became a much better marathon run. I'm sure you could, verify that the more marathons you run, the better you get at them. My
Yeah.
best marathon was, well, my second best anyways, was when I was 50, and it was about my 20th or 21st marathon, maybe even more than that. So it takes a while to get there, and you just, if you have the patience, and just keep trying, you will get better and better, and the age doesn't matter as much.
Right. Age does not matter. And like anything in life, the more you do it, the better you're going to get, you know?
Yeah, I definitely want to get into those habits because I think that's the other thing is I think one, people are afraid, we're afraid of failure, and then we're afraid of other people's opinions. That's the second thing is that, well, who do they think I am to go ahead and do something like this? Here I am, have a podcast. I'm sure there are people saying, "What is wrong with Pete? I think he's lost his mind that he's trying to take on this task." And maybe I am, but something. At least I can say at the end of the day that I made the attempt. I tried it. That's the
Right.
biggest thing
Exactly.
of all. So hopefully that's the advice we can give people is stick that outrageous goal out there, and then again, we may not do it in a week, but put it out there and then again develop those habits. And at least if you don't accomplish that, we've accomplished so much more in the process. It's incredible what you can accomplish. Um, so, how does any current or future health concerns influence your day to day or long term goals? Deirdre?
Health concerns. Well, I was about to say not at all, but I've always enjoyed pretty good health.
Yeah,
And however, 2 years ago, I had massive surgery on my foot. It was basically taken apart and put back together with metal and stuff, and so that has taken a toll on what I can do, but that's highly unusual. That's not exactly a health concern. It was an event, and
yeah,
it's finally winding down now. So I'm getting back to, and of course there's a pandemic, so I can't go out to the crag with my friends, and so everything's sort of ground to a halt for now. But that's not really a health concern. I would have to go back to my original assessment and say probably not at all. If you're lucky enough to enjoy good health, of course,
yeah.
that's all things being equal, not at all.
Okay. How about you, Beth?
I think the way I look at it is, first of all, I'm not going to worry, because there's so many things you can worry about when you're
Correct.
in sports and athletics. So I'm not going to
Right.
worry about what happens in my health 10 years down the road because nobody's
Right.
going to know, and how can, and you can't let that, because you can let that affect you negatively. So I
Right.
don't even think about it. And the way I look at it is that if I end up with something that affects me in a certain way, and I don't know what that's going to be, but I can't reach the goal I have, I'm going to find a different goal, or what happens
Right.
to me is probably going to lead me to something else. And that something else
Right.
might even be far better than anything I could have imagined doing.
Yeah, that's cool. As far as then, so we have this long term goal out there. How are you reverse engineering? How do you get back to, let's say, let's say you have a goal in a year. How are you working your way backwards?
Do you want me to answer
Yeah,
first?
why don't you go first, Beth? Yeah,
All
Okay.
right. Well, what I do is I usually kind of, if you do the same thing day after day and year after year, and say I just, I was just a runner for a long time, and I did different things in running and different distances and concentrated on different things, but eventually you get to a point where it's like you're looking for something else. So something totally outrageous in your mind comes along, something that scares you, something that you're not even sure you can do, but you're kind of excited, kind of scared. And what I do is I first go and throw up, and then I sit down and I say, okay, I really do want to do this, even though it scares the daylights out of me. How do I do this? So I just start breaking it into the little tiny pieces, like Deirdre says.
Yeah.
You make it into little pieces,
Yeah.
and then
Right.
each day as you go along, and I keep track of a lot of stuff because I am an engineer and I reverse engineer for that's my life.
Yeah.
It's my work life and it's my sports life. So I look at
Right.
every little
Right.
thing, and it gives me the confidence that I can succeed in what I'm going to do.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. You got to backwards engineer into baby
Yep.
steps. You can do
Mhm.
anything by baby steps. Anything. I mean, and the progress has to be slow. You can't learn to tie your shoes if you can't make a loop. You know, you have to master making a loop before you can tie your shoes. If you never master making a loop, you won't be able to tie your shoes. I mean, it's very simple. Baby steps. You can't go right to the final goal, no matter what you want to accomplish. You know,
Yeah.
something like climbing El Cap. That required a lot of reverse engineering. You know, I was a very moderate climber. I still am. I probably always will be. I'm not great shakes of a climber, and my son is very eager to point that out. My son is the best climber in the world. So once a year, I get to climb with him. And like 3 years ago, I kind of, he was coming through the room, and I said, I think maybe someday you could get me up El Capitan. And I really didn't expect him to say yes, because he knew how I climb. But son of a gun, there we were. We planned it anyway. And you just have to, you reach for the goal. Like you said, first you go throw up. And then you start to shake, and then you look up and see El Cap and say, "Holy, I can't do it!" And then you backwards engineer it. And like you said, the reverse engineering, breaking it down to baby steps, you can do anything. I mean, if I can climb El Capitan, anybody can do anything, really.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just jump on that on El Cap. So going up to it, obviously you went there and you practiced. You practiced not the whole thing, but you practiced parts of that over and over again. Correct?
Right. The first step of the backwards engineering was to find out, what gear I would need, to learn how to use it all, because it's a very specialized set of gear, very specialized techniques, and a very specialized mindset to go up a wall like that. It's not just regular climbing. And so I backwards engineered it. I got all the gear. I asked all my friends, what they knew about it and all that, and um, just started out baby steps by myself. There are fixed ropes that hang on El Cap. They go up to fixed ropes that hang off the bolts that the climbers use, and they're always there. And they change them periodically, so they're safe. And they go up to about 1,000 feet. The whole wall is almost 3,000 feet, a little bit more than 3,000 feet. So they go up about 1,000 feet, which is a pretty heady experience the first time you do
Yeah.
it. And so I didn't start at 1,000 feet. First, it's a total of six and a half ropes that go up that high. And so the first time I tried it, I did one rope, and I was darn glad I got that one done. Shaking and crying and talking to myself the whole way up and down. But like you said, it has to be a habit. Once you make it a habit, then you can learn to look down, and those trees don't look quite so far away. And so definitely it's habit. You have to
Yeah.
make habit. You have to get comfortable with it. Like my son's always talking about in the movie. If you've seen the movie,
Yeah.
you expand that comfort zone to include what you're trying to accomplish. And you have to get comfortable. It took him years, literally many, many years, to be able to climb El Cap without the rope. It took me 18 weeks to be able to climb it with the ropes.
Yeah.
It
Well,
had to become habit. It had to become habit that you no longer need to think about. You just go do.
that's what I thought was amazing about the movie. Real quick, Beth, and we'll get to you. Is just the amount of times that he went over that, and that he wrote every single hold down, and every single just the amount of detail. And Beth and I, we
Talk about
do.
baby steps, right?
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah, Beth, you want to jump in there?
So what I was thinking was the fact that I know a lot of people are afraid of a big goal, and it's not a bad thing to be afraid. And the thing is, you can continue to be afraid all the way up through, because that's what
Right.
keeps you on track as well. I mean, for me anyways, there's a lot of things I do that I'm not exactly comfortable doing, but also when you do something like that, even if it's just practicing, like your first rope you did up, I'll bet you felt like on top of the world by the time you were done.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I had arrived.
I'll bet.
Hold on. Yeah, a couple people trying to get on, so I just told them to refresh. So next thing, so as far as like for us, as far as Ironman or say marathon, obviously marathon, you can start at a 5K, you work to a 10K, you work to a half, and then you work to a full. Same thing when it comes to the Ironman. We can work our way up. What advice do you have for people that we're going to talk about non-athletic goals as far as like for you for the symphony? What was your step up to get to that point? How did you do that?
You mean the final goal? You're talking about
Yeah,
the
like all of a sudden you just to get to the symphony. I'm sure there has to be some steps that you take to get there to direct
oh
this
yeah,
whole
oh,
symphony.
so many steps. So first I had to learn all the vocabulary and not exactly gear, but the things that I would need to know how to do.
Yeah.
Then I had to go out and find out how to do them and network. And then by that concomitantly with all that, I was trying to organize a group of musicians to do this. You have to have musicians.
Yeah.
and, and fortunately, though, I'm a writer. I've been a writer all my life, and I was writing for all the regional newspapers and magazines, and so I could get the press out and get the word out. So I got a lot of reaction. So right from the bat, we had enough musicians, kind of just barely, to squeak out a little orchestra. And so it was step by step, and then we all met, and they didn't know what they were doing because they hadn't done it for many years. I didn't know what I was doing because I'd never done it. So we all kind of learned together. They helped me, I helped them, and the press helped a little bit. And by the time we got to our very first concert, our very first public concert, it was just habit, like you say, habit. I had done it. We had rehearsed like 2 years or a year and a half by that
Okay.
point, and we knew how to carry the instruments around, where to put the big timpani drums, and where to put this and that and the other thing, and we all knew our job in this big endeavor, because that's a very group endeavor,
Yeah.
and everybody knew their job. Everybody knew how to do it, when to do it, when not to do it, which is very important in orchestra. And so by the time you got to like the final goal, it was so, like I said before, or you expand your comfort zone, and it was so comfortable for us by that first concert that it was no big deal.
Yeah.
Kind of like Alex climbing his wall. By the time you get to that point, by the time you've practiced all that baby step so many times, it's no big deal. You just go do it. You just go do what you already know you can do. You know. I'm sure, Beth, you had the same experience with running the marathons. I mean, by the time you get to the start line,
Oh yeah.
you know you
Yeah.
can do it, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. And I mean, I grew up as a runner starting when I was 14 years old, and I never even considered a marathon. And
Yeah.
then when I turned 30, I sort of said to myself, "Ooh, I better do one of these marathon things before I get too old." Which is really amusing now that I think about it, because I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even really know what I was doing my first marathon." And I ended up in a marathon in Kansas City, Missouri, because my brother lived there and I was 30, and he was living there, and we had, well, let's see. I was talking with a guy towards the last bunch of miles when my legs just would not stride. I felt like I had zero stride, and I'm going, "What's going on? I don't understand." We had rain and it turned to snow in the middle of the marathon. And this guy, he's like, he kept calling me Miss New York because I lived in New York at the time, and we had talked a little bit. And I said to him, I said, "Is this like normal the way I feel?" He goes, "Yeah, just take shorter steps. It'll be okay." All right. So some of the thing too is when you get into these things, you can actually get help from other people
Right.
even during an event like that. I
Yeah.
mean, this guy was so helpful to me. He ran with me for a while, and then I kind of felt bad because I saw the finish line about half a mile ahead and I left him in the dust. I
You
wanted to
do
be
what you have to do.
I was hypothermic. I really was. I mean, I was running along in that marathon, right before I started talking to this guy, but right before I did, I was about 22 miles in, and I'm running and my eyes closed, and I wanted to go to sleep. And and I realized that, okay, I started repeating my name, and I'm trying to do all these mind things because I'm going, I'm in some trouble here. So then I started
Yeah.
talking to this guy, and he stayed with me and helped me out. And it just, you know, you're never alone, really. I mean, even in your climb, I'm sure you're really not alone because you've got other people with you, and they'll help you and give you guidance if you need it.
Yeah, it's a little bit different with climbing because you're not really with them. One's
Right,
200 feet up, and
right.
so it's
Okay,
a little bit. But I know what you mean. I did my first marathon when I was 56, and
okay.
I didn't really have anybody to train with. I trained by myself at night, and but same thing happened. I talked with people, as we jogged along there. I was
Mhm.
in the back with the grandmas, but I did finish. I finished despite myself, and like you said, talking to yourself. When you get to Sacramento, you go through 5 cities on
Mhm.
it's the California International. You go through 5 cities from Folsom
Okay.
down to the capital in Sacramento. So you fly through, Folsom, you fly through Orangeville, you go through 5 cities, small, little cities, and then you get
Okay.
to Sacramento, and then it becomes impossible because then
Yeah.
you're going street by street. Before I was measuring my pace by cities, then all of a sudden 50 seconds, 51st Street, 50th. I was sure I was not going to get to 40th Street, and then I was sure I was not going to get to 30th Street, but
Well,
well,
the way I look at it, Dierdre, I think about it. You climbing El Cap. Anything I do is not as life threatening as that. So whatever goal I set, I'm not worried about falling off. Hopefully, I'm not worried about falling off my bike or this podcast. I'm not going to die doing it. Hopefully, so I think that basically puts a lot of things in realistic terms.
yeah, that's the one big difference. Climbing is different from every other endeavor, 'cause, like, if you don't finish your marathon, well, you'll go home disappointed. Your legs might be sore, but you're not going to
Right.
die,
Yeah.
or take anybody else with you. It's a different mindset.
So we've talked about kind of that reverse engineering. Do either of you set day-to-day goals?
Oh yeah, oh
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. I think you have to, don't you, Beth? Yeah, you have
Absolutely.
to.
Yeah. Your main goal that you're working for, I think, kind of gets stale, kind of
Right,
gets pushed to the
gets
side, and
lost.
other things take
Right.
over. Yeah.
Right. It
And
gets
not only
lost
do
in
you
the
have,
distance. If you don't keep it
yeah,
close to you, like every day or every other day, it gets lost in the distance. And one day you wake up and say, "Oh, wasn't I going to, fill in the blank?" So yeah, oh yeah, you have to
exactly.
keep it
And
close
I
to you.
think that may be where a lot of people end up failing to be able to do
Right,
something is
right,
they don't keep that focus. I
right,
mean, it has to be a manageable step, but it also has to be something that you think about on a daily basis.
right.
And I think that's one. With athletics, let's say when you're training for that marathon or you're training for a triathlon, we have a training plan that's set up. But I think as far as life itself, I don't think we have that. And I think majority of people, it's so easy to get off track if you're not writing. So are you writing them down or just in your head? Do you kind of keep them in a journal or something? How are you tracking them?
Journal is the key. Journal is the answer. When I was thinking about doing my first marathon, I had no time to train. Literally, I worked full time, and I was more than full time teaching. And then I'd come home, and I was doing two different, what do you call this thing? A state. I was not managing, executing. I was executor for two different estates. My father had died, and then I inherited these houses I had to run from I did not have any time. So I looked up those training things you were talking about, Beth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There are schedules out there that you can follow. I couldn't follow any of them because I didn't have that kind of time. So I had to, backwards, like I said before, you have to backwards engineer it. And I, made my own schedule. But absolutely, journaling, you can think anything through in a journal. I can't stress that enough. No matter what your goal is, whether it's music or sports or whatever your goal is, you can think anything through in a journal and do the backwards engineering that way. Keep it close to you. Like you said, keep it close to you on a day-to-day basis.
How about you, Beth? Do you write everything down every day?
I'm mostly numbers person, so a lot of my stuff is in numbers, but I will say that I sort of have like a little accountability book, I call it. So in that, I will put some things down. I will, any doubts or fears or why, I have this problem or that problem. Is this, why should this not affect what I'm trying to do? So I
Yeah,
probably don't
that's a
write as
journal.
much as a lot of people,
Yeah.
but I
Well,
do a
that's a
lot of,
journal. It's a different kind. Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, I found that I'm at my best when I actually write things down. So I have a journal, and actually every night I'm writing down 3 goals of what I want for the next day. And it doesn't have to be necessarily with athletics. It could be podcast related, it could be family related, could be work related. But I'm putting down 3 goals, and then really the next night I go back and look at it, and then I say, "Oop, I didn't do that." And maybe I push it forward to the next day, or have a little conversation with myself and saying, "Well, why didn't?" It's now been a week that I had that goal in there. Maybe I need to do something to hit that. But I think, as you said in the past, I know when we talked, Deirdre, that journal, it's the best drink. You're right. Putting everything down there is incredible, and it basically keeps you on task.
Right. 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 Exactly. Even if we do it by the numbers, like Beth said, you're a numbers
Mhm.
person. That's a journal too. It's just a
Yeah.
different kind. Uh, there are as many different kinds of journals as there are different kinds of people.
Yeah.
It works. It really works.
Yeah, I like. I don't know if either of you heard Andy Layton. I interviewed him, and he basically had Parkinson's, and he basically plays pickleball. So that's his way. So he has a whole group behind him, pickleball over Parkinson's. And every email I got from Andy was Andy 1, Parkinson 0. So every day, that's how he evaluated that today was a good day, and he's like, I'm going to beat this thing. So he went and every day was just a 1 and 0. That was basically it, and I love that aspect as far as really every day we can evaluate, did we accomplish what we needed to that day, and whatever it is, mind, body, spirit, family, whatever, work. I think there's definitely something that forces you to take that next step to say, I don't want to put a 0 down.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
So question is day-to-day feeling of accomplishment. So like your short-term successes, is it, I know you're both intrinsically motivated, I can see that. So how important is it to be able to check those boxes as far as, say, meeting a short-term goal or doing something? You're going to do it anyways, correct?
Yes, I am.
Probably.
I mean, it's so important for me. You don't know. I mean, I don't know if I could go to sleep if I didn't check off my goals for the day.
Well, I'm not quite that religious about it. Yeah. Once in a while, I
I am.
miss them, but of course, I'm not.
I'm,
I'm
I'm
not
a,
an athlete like you. I
Okay.
have different.
well,
I have different little boxes to check, but I'm a little more lenient with myself, but I don't have such stringent goals as you do.
I guess that's true. But I also, at the beginning of the day, if I know something isn't going to happen, that's when it comes off the list, so that I don't
Well, yeah.
have to have that stress all day long because I will stress about it. That's just my personality. So,
Uh, uh,
Okay.
yeah.
So how does the thought of failure weigh in there? Are you concerned about failure?
Failure. Nope, not at all.
Okay.
Really,
I'm not
I
sure
mean,
what that word means, and I don't really. Is it in the dictionary?
yeah,
Maybe I'll look it up.
exactly. Exactly. You only fail if you stop trying.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's the only way to
Absolutely.
fail at something is to stop trying. Once you commit to a goal, no matter what the goal is, no matter how outrageous that goal is, like climbing El Cap, geez, for somebody sedentary most of the year, I was a teacher and a writer, that's absolutely impossible, right? Of course. Nonetheless, once you once you commit to a goal, you commit to taking those little baby steps, and you commit to finding the time, and you commit to all that stuff. Failure just fades away into the woodwork. There's no such thing once you commit, because you only fail if you stop trying.
Mhm. And the other thing is you don't think about failure either. I mean, you keep that
Right.
right out of it's never comes into play in the whole thing. The whole thing is going through what you need to do to get to that goal.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
There
but
are goals. There are other goals, but I wouldn't call changing a goal failure. If you change from one to
No,
the other,
right.
fine. Yeah.
yeah, I think
Sometimes it's smart.
yeah. And as a devil's advocate, I think there's so many people that are afraid of failure and they're
Right.
not doing it. So
And
I
they
know,
learn that in school, and that's so sad.
yeah.
Really. Oh, it breaks my heart.
I know.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think people are. If there's anybody listening, and the people are listening, but they can't comment for whatever the comments aren't working right now. I'm not sure why, but so I'm trying. Well, I'm trying to monitor Facebook and everything and pull things in manually. But anyways, I think that one of the problems is that people are afraid of failure, and they'll look at the three of us and say, "You guys aren't afraid of anything." What advice?
Oh, that's so not true.
Uh,
Good, glad to hear that.
not true at all.
People say that all the time about my son.
Yeah,
Like he's a freak, and he's a what's the word, a daredevil, and all that. That's so not true.
yeah,
But it's a question of committing to something and then striving for towards it. And
Right. Right.
and once you
Exactly.
commit, there's no such thing as failure. Like you say, it doesn't enter into the picture. That's right. Just don't even think about it.
yeah. But I'm gonna feel bad. I'm gonna feel bad if I don't hit that goal. What
Well,
is?
You're gonna try it
yeah,
again. That's all.
I don't understand that.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you, but I think it's frustrating sometimes. I think that no matter what that is in life, I think people are they always say what the hardest step is the first step.
First step.
So whether it is to get out the morning, laying the shoes out by the door, they say whatever you can do, putting your clothes next to the bed so the second you get up you put them on, or even sleeping in them if you have to, just to find the way to get out the door. That first step, and I think that hopefully the three of us prove that if you take that first step, you don't know what it's going to bring us, but I think it's definitely something we all need to do, and just keep going, one foot in front of the other.
I think a lot of that fear of failure comes, it's not a fear of failure, it's a fear of committing.
Yeah,
Because once you commit, that failure is non-existent. It's what's the word I'm looking for? It's there's no such thing. Once you commit, it's the fear of commitment that we're talking about here.
yeah.
The failure is not an issue. It's the committing that's the issue. And a lot of people are afraid to commit to a goal because oh, I'm not going to have time. Oh, it's not going to feel good. Oh, my husband this, my wife that. But once you commit to it, once you ignore all those other naysayers and commit to it, then failure goes away, and it's not an issue.
Okay. Anything to add, Beth? No.
That pretty much covers
Okay.
what the way I would look at it myself. That's great.
Okay, so my question now, again, since we're talking about those naysayers, how much do they influence your achievement of a goal? Do you even consider them? Does it matter? Like someone say, oh, Deirdre, you're crazy. You just can't go climb El Capitan. Or Beth, why are you going up to run a 50K? Or why? Does it matter?
No, not a bit. Not a bit. Not a bit.
Well,
If you commit to it, you commit to it. It doesn't matter what anybody says. You commit to it. You are committed. You're gonna. I don't see there's an option once you commit.
Does it motivate
You
you,
have
though? Or Beth,
to do
does it motivate you?
well, for me, I have selective hearing, so I never hear the naysayers. And you know,
Oh, yeah, exactly.
generally, if somebody's naysaying, unless I like to think that maybe it's because they're worried about me or concerned about me,
Right,
and that's the
right,
way I treat it. So whenever I come
right.
across a naysayer, I'm like, look, I I can figure out this myself, and I want to do this, and I know you're saying that this is not a good idea, or it's an example. I got at work. It was it was on St. Patrick's Day, 2003. It was a month before my first Boston Marathon. I accidentally at work put my all four of my fingers through a 400 or 540-degree polymer melt curtain. Okay, just
Oh,
horrible. You do not want to ever get burned like that. I had third-degree burns on my fingers. One of my fingers was severely burned right to the bone. And
yeah.
immediately I started hearing from everybody, you can't run Boston. You can't do it. And I'm talking to the doctor, and he says, and I said, but this is my first one. I just qualified. I want to do it so bad. He says, you don't understand. Burns are really painful. And I'm saying, well, wait, are you saying that something will bad, there's some like really good reason that you shouldn't even try to run it, or you shouldn't train, right? He goes, well, no. He goes,
Right,
it's just gonna hurt. And I said, well, it hurts now anyways.
right,
So and he said, but when you're running, the blood going through your burn is going to make your hand throb. He was right. He's absolutely right about but I was
right,
determined, and I said, "Thank you for your concern. I'm going to
right,
try." And I did run
right.
that Boston, and I did requalify. So, it's
Good for
sometimes it's
you.
just a mind over matter. Yeah, it was yeah, of all the things that
Yeah,
happened right
yeah.
before that.
People do.
Anyways,
Yeah,
I was people will
people,
and they mean it in the best way most of the time,
exactly,
and
exactly. Yeah, I
I
got a lot
think
of
if you
naysayers
can,
in mine too.
yeah,
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 Yeah, I don't know about you. For me, again, I try to ignore most of it, but honestly, some of it fuels me. Because again, if they're going to tell me, or if I hear that they don't think I'm going to be able to do something, I'm going to prove them
right,
wrong at all costs. And I guess I'm stubborn in that regard. That's ask my mother. I'm probably stubborn, but I'm going to do it, and I'm going to prove that really I can do it. And who are they to tell me again? It's my life. It's your life. We all have to make decisions. And just
exactly.
because if they're not willing to make that decision or put themselves out there, maybe that again will say, well, if Pete can do it, maybe I can do it too. So I'm hoping that to kind of motivate people that way as well.
Right,
yeah, correct. I think
absolutely.
sometimes people are naysaying to you because I can think of a person in my past that was naysaying about my full Ironman because I wasn't a swimmer and I had just learned and I hadn't been doing triathlon long, and it was all naysay. And I kind of realized it was because this person was afraid, would have loved to do that goal, but was too afraid to do it themselves.
Right, right,
So
right.
once I realized that, I was just like, okay, I can deal with this. It's not, I don't feel like I need to just prove anything, but I'm just going to go do my own thing. And I feel bad for the person that they can't, you know, try to do that themselves. But I mean, I can only
Right,
encourage so much. So
right.
Yeah, it's hard. So any other? So we talked about journaling. We talked about kind of doing your day-to-day goals. Anything else that you think are kind of those secrets to success to other than attitude? I mean, you both have again, you're intrinsically motivated, but anything else that you do to kind of help that may help other people?
Um,
I think,
well, the journaling, I'd like to re-stress the journaling. I mean, that can really, really be a factor in in approaching your goal and figuring out your goal. And figuring out whether you really want to accomplish a particular goal. Sometimes we choose things and then we change our minds. That's fine too. That's not failure. That's just a change. So yeah, journaling is a real key to the first step in this process, which is the commitment. you know it's, you keep saying that we're intrinsically motivated. Well, yeah, we're motivated to commit to things, both Beth and I.
That's
and and that's the biggest step. That's the biggest step. And after you make that step, the commitment, then there's no such thing as failure or discouragement, and all that stuff fades away. And the journal can really help with that, I believe.
Okay. How about peers? How about people around you? How big of a factor is that in your success as well? I'll start with you, Beth. Yeah.
Other side.
Yeah.
See that? That's the best team in the world.
Yeah.
It's great because you have, I mean, let's face it, some of the stuff that we're doing, a lot of people would consider it suffering or, are
Yeah,
just, why would you want to put yourself through that? But when you do these things and you
right.
do them with somebody else, or you have somebody doing the same goal as you, it helps you along. It makes you, I mean, not everybody is going to have a good day.
Hmm.
I've had bad training days. And you know what? When I have those bad training days, my friends who are training with me are like, it's okay. You know what? I know you're not having a great time trying to bike right now. Get behind me and we'll pull you along and we'll help you along. And I think that, and also being able to discuss with the peers that you do these things with, is a great help.
Yeah. How about Dierdre for you, climbing or really anything else in life?
For running in my life, running preceded climbing. I started running at 55. I had never run before. My lungs are very damaged by growing up in a house full of smoke for 25 years. And so I didn't really have the puff, and I was always convinced I could never run. I could never do anything sustained like that. I was wrong, but so I didn't start running until I was 55, and I was, like I said before, I was doing executing several estates at that point. I was running 5 houses. I was remodeling all 5 houses, 3 on the East Coast, 2 on the West Coast. It was a crazy time in my life, but I needed to do this right then. It was my sanity, it was my bid for sanity. It was the only thing I could control in my life. And so I did. And so I only ran with the dog. We had a big dog, a Malamute. And I would take the dog out at night after I had finished all my teaching and all my estate work and all the housework and all that stuff. Couldn't see anymore. I'd leash up the dog and we'd go run. And so I never had a like, you have your little team, Beth.
Yeah.
I always envied that because I never had any team. I never ran with anybody. I never, so all of my running was alone.
Hmm.
And then I did the marathons. I did like 4 marathons. And talking about what you were talking about with your hand, Beth, my third marathon I ran with a broken hand and all kinds of lacerations. 2 weeks before
Of
the
course you
marathon,
did.
I had caught my toe and I went flying through the air and landed, hands down. I was a wreck. And everybody was telling me, "Oh, don't go do it! Don't go do it! You're hurting! You're this! You're that! Your hand! You're going to jar the bone loose again!" And all these naysaying things. But if you're committed, you're committed. um, but you just don't listen to them. What can I say?
Yeah.
Well,
I
said
think
I
that.
always said if my hand's hurting while running that marathon, then the rest of me I won't feel the pain as much. So maybe
Exactly. Exactly. When I came running in on that third marathon, I came running in. I had my hand up in the air because I had a cast on my arm and on my forearm, and it gets sodden with sweat as you run, and it got heavier and heavier, so it was pulling down my shoulder. So I put my arm up in the air so it wouldn't pull on my shoulder and throw me out of kilter. And so I ran in that way, and all the things that had lacerated started bleeding again because of all the fabric rubbing for 26 miles.
oh my
And so when I
gosh.
came here, I was a bleeding mess. I think they thought I had fallen, and I was bleeding from that, but I
Oh
wasn't.
yeah.
Yeah.
Funny.
And it was a policewoman's marathon, so it was officers all over the place. They all come running up, say, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" But but like you said, you just block it out and you just go for the goal. But I always envied those runners who would talk about their team and going
Yeah.
out running on Saturday mornings. I could never do that. But I did have to have not a team exactly, but a pair to go climbing. You have 2 people on a rope, or three, or a group. So I did get a little experience of that. But I
Yeah.
always envied people like you, Beth.
Yeah, having a team basically, especially if you have like-minded goals, and like we're for us, if we're doing the same event, it's so easy to have someone else kind of pull you through on those bad days because we all have those days where we're just don't feel it, don't want to do it. But then, they always say the best training partner is the one that sets something up and you don't want to disappoint them, that you need to be there. Like there's many Saturday rides that we do that are like, I don't know if I really want to go. But then I'm like, I didn't see many other people going. It's just going to be Beth and her husband, Alan. I'm like, they'll still do it anyways, but I need to go. And then you go and you feel so much better for doing it. And plus, I think I don't know about you, I miss the group activities. Like I'm sure for climbing, the same thing. I miss being with everybody. That's part of that social aspect. The goal is secondary. It's the being together. It'll happen because we have everybody together, and we feed off each other. I miss that. I can't wait for that day to return.
Yeah,
Yeah, me
I
too.
know, I do
For the
too.
family, yeah.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the comments aren't coming through. So we're going to do is I have a few more questions now. This is going to be available after for anybody to view, and I'll show you how we can kind of share that. But any other comments or questions or thoughts or advice for people about taking that first step?
Don't
Oh,
listen to anybody.
Yeah.
Don't listen to anybody. If you want to do something, just go do it. If it's not feasible, you won't be able to do it. You have to change your goal. But don't let don't let other people make up your mind, and especially don't let the media make up your mind. I mean, we are so trained from practically from birth. We are so trained to check in with the media. What's good for me? What should I be doing? What's trending?
mhm,
What's this? Oh, that's just so wrong for goal setting.
Hmm.
If you let TV and all the commercials and the media tell you what you should be doing or what drugs you should be taking, I was astounded at the number of drug commercials on cable TV because I don't have cable TV. I never have, and I went to somebody's friend and I went to a friend's house and they had it on and every commercial was for drugs, one drug or another for some disease or another, and holy cow, I couldn't believe that's allowed, that's permitted. But if you listen to the media and they'll tell you what to wear and what you should want to do and what you should want to eat, and if you buy into that, you will not accomplish your goals because they're not going to be your goals.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
How about you, Beth?
I would say a couple things is, especially if you're just starting out, you do find a group that you can interact with. And in that group, don't be afraid to ask questions because the group is going to be more than willing to help. They've all been there. They've all been that new person and they know how scary that is, and they're more than willing to help you. And then the
Yeah,
other couple things are you want to focus on, your little tiny victories that you get each day. Maybe you ran a quarter mile farther than you've ever run in your life, and but
yeah,
you're training for a marathon, so you think, okay,
yeah.
well, I just ran 11 miles and the most I'd ever done was
Right,
10. Well, that's a victory. I mean, don't
right.
think
Go
of
home and
that.
celebrate.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
say, don't think of that as, oh, geez, I still got to do another 15 after that or something. I mean, think of it as a victory and it's a small step on the way. And then the
yeah,
last thing that I think sometimes people get hung up on is they start to compare themselves with other people.
right.
And
So
you
true.
really can't do that. You need to be, this is for you. This is your goal. This is all yours and you own it, but don't let the fact that X person is this much better or that much better or
Right.
anything like that, because it should be you and yourself and not so much what everybody else has got going on because everybody's got different goals.
Amen to that. Every body is
That's
different. Every mind is different. Yeah. Oh,
right.
so
Right.
true. So true. Yeah.
Well, finally got a comment to come through, and Beth, you'll appreciate this one. It says, "Loves the
Uh-oh.
love the closed captioning." That's from your husband, Alan. So at least finally something came through. So at least I feel better that we at least got something on the screen.
We're learning as we go. That's good.
That's it. Yeah. Hey, the same thing. I could have been fearful and said, I don't want to do this because I don't know what's going to happen. Something we're learning, and basically the goal is accomplished. We did it.
Right. Yay for us.
Yeah.
So I want to thank. We're about 55 minutes now, and I want to thank both of you for doing this. I appreciate it. Stay there for a second. I'm going to just do one other flip to one screen, kind of end it out, and then we'll talk after. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, so I hope that you all enjoyed this. I know there were people out there. I know there was some difficulty with getting some comments into it. I know there was some issues initially. This is a learning process. I promise I will get better at this. We'll do this more often. You're going to be sick of seeing me, but I'm going to continue to come at you, and then hopefully you appreciate that. So ways to get involved, like we said, please subscribe to the podcast. Give me a rating or leave a comment. Share with your friends. This will be available on the Facebook group. I did share it to a few other groups. It is public, so you can see that. It will be on YouTube as well. I am looking for guides. I have 2 more weeks set up as of right now. I'm taking it week by week. Please drop me a line, and that way I'd love to have you hear the stories that you're doing and what you've accomplished and what you plan on to accomplish. And then also, like I said, we have patron program and then the affiliate program. So I'm going to finish with a quote. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. That's Wayne Gretzky. Set that goal, no matter how outrageous it is, and just start working at it. Even if you don't achieve that goal, there are a lot of other things you're going to achieve along the way that'll get you a lot farther than where you are today. And lastly, my miles are for the journey. Thanks again, Pete Perusik.